Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of this little show that I like to call Spill It. Spill It is a show where I get to speak to inspirational people and share inspirational stories to connect people together, inspire others, and help people learn something new. And this episode is no different at all because this is episode 52, Family Portrait. And the one and only Pia Prana will be joining us at 7:10 p.m. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. I cannot wait to get into this. Honestly, when I first met Pia Prana, we spoke obviously via the internet, and we had a chat, and we were talking about specifically family. And she was saying things, and I was like, "Oh my god, these things are just like clicking into place." And I was like, oh my god, this is something that I really, really want to talk about on my show. So she's waiting nice and patiently in the green room, waiting to come out so we can discuss family. Oh, it's going to be a good one, and I cannot wait. So make sure that when you are here, you have liked, you have shared, and you have commented. The reason that I asked for these three things is as simple as this. If you like it and you comment, it means, sorry, if you like, let me start again. The reason that I asked for these three things is simple. The reason I asked for you to like it is because when you like this, it pushes it up on the algorithm of Facebook or YouTube or Twitch or wherever you're watching from. It means that other people will then get to see it. If you share it, it means other people get to join the Spill It community. And if you comment, it means that I get to pop up your comments on the screen and we get to discuss them in real time as well. Now, you can drop me a comment at any point. You can also ask Pia Prana any questions as well that you've got throughout this episode. It's going to be a good one. If you haven't checked out our other episodes yet, make sure that you do. You can head over to the brand new Spill It website at www.spillit.uk, where you will be able to see all of the episodes in action over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Or if you are on the move and you are having a bit of a drive around, etc., then you can listen to the podcast, and the links to the podcast, or the three main podcasts, are on the website too. So you can listen via Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. There we go. So that is the intro. Welcome, guys. Welcome, one and all. Oh, how has this week been for you guys? How has the last week been for you guys? It's been really, really nice weather. It's been so good. Like this, to have this summertime. It's been absolutely epic, really. So I'm thoroughly enjoying the sunshine. And also, great news. I mean, we're going to talk about it very, very shortly anyway in the announcements, but I have something that you guys may know, because that's all I've been talking about over the last few weeks. I have something launching this Saturday. I can't wait for that. Anyway, let's get back into it. Get those comments and questions in. Make sure that you have commented, and also don't forget to hit that share button. Now, let's quickly talk about some announcements. Now, obviously, as I say, I've talked about this every single week for the last 3 weeks, I would say. So you should know what this announcement is. But, it's launching this week. My very own radio show is launching this Saturday from 3 till 4 p.m. It is called A Little Bit of Marcus, and it'll be live across the airwaves. Now, you'll be able to tune in, on the internet. You'll be able to tune in on your radio, in the car. You'll also be able to ask your Alexa to do it as well, which is awesome. But all you have to do is tune into Beat 103 Radio at 3 till 4 p.m. and you'll have a little bit of Marcus in your life, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to be playing the latest hits. I'm going to be choosing a song of the week. I'm going to be talking once a month as well. I'm going to have a guest come in, and we're going to have like a little bit of a sneaky preview, let's say, because that guest will also be invited to come and to Spill It to do a full episode with me. But on the radio, we'll be playing a little game. I've got a few little games planned. You know that I like my games with people anyway, so there you go. But that is launching this Saturday, and as I say, you can tune in via your normal radio. It's FM radio, so it's Beat 103. You can ask your Alexa to say, "Hey Alexa, play Beat 103." And also you can tune in your car while you're driving around. You can have me in your ears. So not only can you be listening to the Spill It podcast in your car via Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, but then when it goes to 3 to 4 p.m. on a Saturday, you can listen to me live in the cars. Yes! I've made it, guys. I've made it. Amy Sinner has said, "Go, Marcus." Thank you, Amy. If you don't remember Amy was our guest quite a few weeks ago now, actually. It was last month. Yeah, last month, Amy was our guest. Thanks for joining, Amy. And yeah, go Marcus, go me. Love it, absolutely love it. Right. It is that time. It is 7:10. And I did say that my guest has been waiting ever so patiently in the back, ready to come out and talk to us all about family and family life. I really can't wait for this episode. I really cannot wait for this episode. Anybody that knows me will know why I can't wait for this episode. We may get into it. Who knows? I mean, that's a therapy session, that one. But she's waiting patiently in the back. I'm ready. She's ready. Are you ready? Because here she is. It is my guest of the hour. It is Pia Prana. Hi.
Hi, Marcus. Hi. I feel like I've had a little bit of Marcus already sitting in the green room watching it. And I've been having so much fun already. So
honestly,
wow.
everybody's like that. Everybody's like, as soon as they come out, they're like, "Oh my God, we've all had a little bit of Marcus."
I love it. I'm gonna be tuning into your radio show for sure.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. How are you?
You know, after listening to you for the last 10 minutes, I am bubbling with like tingly feel good factor all over. So I couldn't be better right now, actually.
Good. I'm very glad to hear it. Very glad. I'm very glad that my personality is so infectious.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, you and I have already met prior to this particular meeting.
Yes.
And like you, I've really been looking forward to this conversation that we're going to be having, not because of not just because it's my work and it's important to me, but there's also a reason why it's my work, because it's also my story. Yeah. And as you also said in the intro, for those who know you, there are things, I think for anybody listening, looking closer at family is I think it's an important thing for all of us to do. So I'm super thrilled that this is our topic today.
Definitely. I can't wait to get into it. But first, are you ready to play a little game?
Oh, okay. Truth or dare? No.
No, it's not truth or dare. It is the 5-second rule. That's right. It is the 5-second rule. This is a game that I play with all of my guests. It's a bit of an icebreaker game. All it is that I will say to name 3 somethings, and you've got 5 seconds to name those 3 somethings. It is as simple as that. First thing that comes to the top of your head.
Okay.
Are you ready to play?
No, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Here we go. It is the 5-second rule, and here is your first question of the day. Name 3 things that can be closed with a zipper.
Your pants, my toiletry bag, and the duvet cover.
Do you have a zipper on the duvet?
We do here,
Okay.
actually, believe it or not. Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you off.
You can't check it. So
I can't check it. No. Okay, I'll let you off with that one. I can't check it. So, name 3 animal sounds.
moo, meow, and
I love that
not
one.
very original, but
hey, it works.
pressure is on.
Okay, and your last question for this evening. Name 3 things you do when no one is looking.
Ooh, pick my nose. See, I on purpose, I stalled on that one.
yeah, I gathered.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
It is one that that one's requested all the time. That question.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, they love it. They love getting some juicy details of people. But well done. You did 2 full rounds, and then you got another 1. So you scored 7 out of 9. Well done.
Okay, then. So does that mean I get to be interviewed by you? I win the chance to be interviewed by you.
You win. You've passed the test, which now means that we can move on to the actual interview. The thing is that I wanted to say that you'll get a prize. It's in the post. It's an imaginary prize. But
I'm very grateful for the prize.
It's like a massive trophy and a medal. Well done. You get that. I
have so many people I want to thank, but I'll have to do that later.
All you have to do is close your eyes and imagine you having that trophy and medal, and that is your prize. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. That was fun.
Okay.
But fun.
Let's get into it. So I want to know, who is Pia Prana?
Who is Pia Prana? Pia Prana is an adventurer. I have lived all over the world. I still do kind of live in a few different places. I have an insatiable thirst for knowledge, not any knowledge, but knowledge about myself and what makes me tick, and how can I be a better person in the world, and how can I make a difference in the world. That's a big glass of water I need to drink every day. I love kittens and puppies, anything little and cute.
Anything little and cute.
Yeah.
So let's just pause on that for a second. So anything little and cute. So I'm thinking like the animals that I've got in my house. What about a tortoise?
I think I could be quite happy with the tortoise too. And the reason why I mention that is because we're visiting my husband's sister, and they have 2 brand new kittens. And I've been like a little girl here today. So that's why I brought up the whole kittens and puppies, because I was like,
that's fine. I'll let you off then.
Yeah. But really at the core of who I am is that I'm somebody who really, like on the back end of this thirst that I have, I'm somebody who really wants to really live out loud. And I didn't do that for such a long time. And so for me, life is really about how can I be the best version of myself? And of course, part of that is to take that inner journey to figure out, well, who the hell is that person? So yes, I can talk till the cows come home about who is Pia Prana, but actually it's a constant inner journey that I take with myself, so that I'm constantly checking in to see, am I being authentically who I know myself to be? That's really the core of how I live my life.
That's brilliant. And to be fair, we're all on that journey. I don't think there's anybody on this earth at the moment. I mean, probably is probably an exaggeration, but who could honestly say that they know themselves inside and out and they know exactly who they are and they don't need to do any soul searching or anything like that? Because I think it's all a constant journey, isn't it? About discovering who we are, what we want, and how we fit into this crazy little thing called the world. I pride myself on thinking, I'm here to help people and to help other people get their stories out. But that's who I am right now. Like, give me 5-10 years or whatever, my whole who I am will change. And I think, yeah, I really resonate with you as an individual, which is why obviously I wanted to get you onto the show anyway, because just hearing you talk so articulately as well, I love it. Who were you though?
I was pretty much the opposite of what I just described. So I'm from Norway, up there in the cold north, and I grew up being a really, really good girl. I learned to follow rules. I learned to read the environment to see how should I behave based on what's going on around me. So I was I would say I was hyper vigilant in that way. I very much functioned from a place of how can I be me based on what others are expecting of me. So there was very little authenticity actually in who I was, and in fact that led me to a personal depression, which is actually a long time ago now. It's a couple of decades ago, but it got to such an extreme that I woke up one day and I didn't understand why I was feeling so incredibly sad, why I couldn't stop crying. And then as my journey began, in fact, back then, a couple of decades ago, and it actually, the journey is still ongoing. I'm still a work in progress, but the point being that it took me quite a while to understand what had been going on for me, because I believed everything that my mind was telling me about who I should be. And all those shoulds had come from the outside. It didn't come from the inside.
Yeah.
And so I've really done a massive flip from who I was and who I actually, from that perspective, be it, I wasn't happy. I felt a great deal of emptiness inside. And then that really led me, when I kind of hit that dark night of the soul, where I was so depressed and I just cried every day, I realized that something isn't quite right, obviously. But what I was about to unfold in, like almost like when I'm unpacking a prezi in my birthday or Christmas or whatever, I had no idea what was going to be there. But what I can say in retrospect now is that, it's just riches and copious amounts of so much more happiness and joy and authenticity that I never dreamt was possible. But it required me to really go on a personal journey.
With regards to going on that personal journey, what was the turning point in which you thought, I need to do something now? Because it's so easy to, and I've gone through depression. A lot of my viewers and listeners have gone through depression and deep depression as well. It's so hard to realize or recognize that you need to break that spiral. And I'm just wondering if you'd be able to discuss what your turning point was. What was the point in which you thought something needs to change here?
Well, first of all, everything that was going on for me, I was doing in the privacy of my room. I was doing, I wasn't able to articulate or share with anybody because there was such a great deal of shame involved, right? This feeling of I'm worthless or I'm not good enough. And so I didn't really see a way out in terms of who can I turn to. And yet at the time, there was a friend of mine who was going through her own kind of personal development journey, for lack of a better word. And I was watching her transformation. I was like, wow, there's something in this. And then she, bless her heart, she invited me to kind of come along and check out this program that she was doing. And I didn't have the money to do the program. And she said to me, you know what, I'm so committed to you doing this workshop. You can pay me back when you can afford it. And wow. It's probably the best gift I've ever been given, because what that gave me, and not just that program was happening like the following weekend. So I couldn't even like back out, because it was only a few days from then. And I just remember sitting in the back of that room with all those people. In fact, it was in London. And all I did all weekend was cry, because everything they were saying was just touching me so deeply. And I suppose during that weekend, because there was so much that felt so relevant to me, I realized that, there's something more to this, and I need to continue now what I've started. This is just the beginning. So although I was in this deep, dark place, thanks to this friend, I was able to start. I was able to kind of open that door to see what was there. And that also then gave me the courage to go and get counseling, which of course that has just been ongoing for many years. But that was really the catalyst. And wow, what a wonderful gift that she gave me. And it was only a few months later that I was also able to pay her back. So it wasn't like I was indebted to her forever, but it really was what I needed at that time.
So where does your story go then? So you've done this course, and you've come out at the other end of this course feeling a lot more better about yourself, better about your circumstances, and knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Where did your journey go from there?
Well, I've been living in Hong Kong for the last 25 years, and I had a little break from Hong Kong where I was living in London. So I went back to Hong Kong, where I started my counseling. And it wasn't an easy start, because I was changing. And I'm pretty sure what I'm about to say, a lot of people listening can relate to, because in general, as the human race, we do not like change. And so when you're good friends, i.e. me with my friends, when I start making changes, and they were big changes, people were falling away. They didn't like the changes that were going on for me. But then I managed to, I got curious about this other workshop that was was on offer at the time. And I went there, and I met all these incredible people, thank God, that were all on this journey like me. And so suddenly I'm in a room full of people that aren't looking at me like, you're reading what kind of books? You're doing what in your spare time? Like looking at me like I'm crazy. Instead, they're like, oh yeah, I've read that. Oh, you should also read this one. And it was just such a revelation. Like suddenly I felt like, wow, people are seeing me. People are really seeing me, not for who they want me to be, but for who I am in this moment. And from there, I really, I got an opportunity to work with you might have heard of Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Who at the time I decided I wanted to train as a coach. And at the time I also decided to go off to Singapore and do this Tony Robbins program. And me and my girlfriend, Sonia, we got invited to join a team of mentors that travel with Tony to the various wonderful locations that he runs his Unleash the Power Within program. And I got to be a mentor and coach people from his programs. So everything, it was almost like the moment I started saying who I was back then, that was never me. I need to now start taking action based on who I know myself to be now. And things started happening, and things started falling into place that were in alignment with who I was feeling myself to be and who I was starting to wake up to, including working for somebody, this amazing big international coach that he is, right? And since then, you know, I've been coaching regularly, but I also got into training and facilitation. So everything I have done since then, and that was maybe about 2003, has been working with people, supporting them in whatever way I can, be it in the corporate world or in more sort of intimate individual workshops, etc., and supporting people to come a little bit closer to their own authenticity and starting to get them to know themselves better. All along the way that I was doing the same thing. And so everything kind of came into alignment, both as I was continuing my personal journey, but also then how I was making a living, coming into alignment together, which as you can imagine, that was kind of telling me, see, you're on the right path. And you know, when you've been struggling, it's kind of good then to kind of, oh yeah, I'm doing something that's right for a change. I'm on the right path. And that really helped me just keep going. It was like the engine, you know, it kept on putting fuel in the engine of my enthusiastic moving forward in the world in this new way that I saw myself and felt myself.
I love that. I love just that story in general. I really do admire people that kind of recognize or change themselves and recognize the people that who they were is not actually who they are, if that makes sense. I went through something similar. A lot of my viewers and listeners go through something similar as well, or have maybe questioned people who they used to be. And I think one of the things that you talked about then was these people from your past who didn't really understand the person that you was becoming. And I absolutely love that, because that is me down to a T. I used to put on this facade, and put up so many walls and so many different masks and all that, because I didn't want to get to know the core person who I was deep down. And once I'd come to terms with the person that I am and the person who I wanted to be, and I was more than happy to embrace that person, these people from the past started not really liking or understanding that person and thinking, but I want you to be this person who I know. And I'm like, but that's not me anymore. And that moment that you can kind of just breathe and just think, I want rid of all of that. That's when, and I always say it, I always use this analogy. It is like you are breathing for the first time, that you have grown so much with hiding who you are, or not necessarily hiding who you are, but just not being sure of who you are. So you created this kind of facade, this persona. And then when you finally come to realize who you are and you are happy with who you are, you've done your self-discovery, and then you start being that person. I always use a reference of, it is like breathing for the first time, because you are a brand new you and you see things that you never saw before. And I absolutely love that. So thank you for sharing that story with me. We're going to move on to the work that you do, because obviously you gone through all of that. You're currently working as a coach as well. And I want you to let's talk about your work. Let's talk about the kind of people that you work with and the stories that you can tell and you can share.
Sure. And by the way, I love that breathing for the first time. I so resonate with that. And breathwork, by the way, is one of the things that I offer, and it's such a powerful, full modality. But yeah, let me. So to answer your question, I'm both a coach and a holistic counselor, and so what I tend to do, and this is important, what I say to clients is, I'm not a straight coach and I'm not a straight counselor either. I blend the two together, and for me that works really well. And so who I like to work with, I generally tend to work with women. That's and part of that is because I work with women who, what I call, suffer from good girl syndrome. And people often ask me, well, why did you choose that? Well, because I have been one, and I'm now a recovering good girl. And what does that look like? Well, I work with good girls are people that learn from an early age that they need to put others' needs ahead of their own. Others are more important. I have to make things good at home. I have to please to be loved. And I am always looking to the outside world for cues about who to be in the world. And so because I know this character inside out, I thought, what better way for me to support other women? And a lot of women that come to me, they don't come to me, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm a good girl. It doesn't look like that at all. They come with me with symptoms. And as we then work closer together, of course, I very often find a good girl in there. So what might that look like? Women will come to me because for example, they've got burnout at work, and they're wondering, well, I'm doing everything I should, etc., etc., but they've got burnout. And good girls, for example, and this is also relevant for boys, so it's not just women, it's also men. But good girls, when you don't have boundaries, for example, and in general, good girls have very porous boundaries, we can't say no. So if somebody is burnt out, it's because they keep on taking on more without being able to say no, because their worth is attached to everything they do for others. People come to me. My most recent client has come to me because she says, I don't understand why, when I think back in time at my life, all I can think about is I have bad memories. I don't have any happy memories. And as we started working together, she started seeing that there was a neglect from a very early age. And often neglect will be go hand in hand with somebody who lacks self-worth and lacks a sense of belonging in the world, because it's never about them. It's always about the people in our periphery. I'll have women come and say, I've been single forever, and I go on dates. I'm on Tinder. I'm on all these various sites, but I might have a date, but then they don't call again. And often it might not be so obvious, but it could be a sense of sort of, I'm very needy, and I'm like, oh, I'll be whoever you want me to be. And for somebody who's certain about themselves, they're going to go, well, that's not very sexy. I want you to show up who you are. So there's many different ways that women come to me to the kind of symptoms that they are wanting to, or pain points that they want to figure out. But very often when we go a little bit deeper, we see that it's actually this disease to please, and essentially this deep sense of shame about and not feeling like you're good enough in the world, and then looking for ways to compensate for that.
Yeah. I just, when you were talking then, and I do a lot of the things that you were discussing just then. Like, I cannot say no. That's one of my really bad traits, which is why I suffer with burnout very, very quickly. Because I cannot say no. To be fair, there's a few people that I know that would be the same, or I assume they would kind of fit into that box as well, because I see them. I see the things that they should say no to, but they don't. And when you were talking about like the pleaser and things like that, all of this fits very, very well, and this is a very nice segue as well into, because it comes from obviously being young. I'm just wondering if we can segue this into the family life, the family roles, and all of that.
Oh yeah, my favorite topic. Yeah, and of course everyone has a family. It could be that you're not living with your family of origin, or that you're not connected with your family of origin, but we all had a family of origin. And whoever you now refer to as your family, we all have family. But I'm going to specifically talk about family of origin from a perspective of how you learned to be a human being in this world. And so and by the way, I also want to be very clear that I am not a mother. I had a mother, but I'm not a mother. So I'm really speaking more from a sort of psychological perspective, counseling perspective. So when we look at families, we can see that there can be healthy family dynamics, people that have really been able to take care of themselves as human beings, and so when they become parents, they have a healthy way to interact and create healthy attachment with their children, help their children to understand healthy boundaries, helping their children to understand that they are loved no matter what, right? And then, of course, many of us, we also grow up in dysfunctional families. And that's where could be a number of different internal conflicts, so inside of the family. And that can be anything from maybe you grew up in a single parent household, or maybe there are, maybe you grew up with parents fighting all the time. There could also be any kind of mental illness, domestic violence, sibling rivalry, and then there could also be things like addiction, maybe unemployment that influences the family. That lots of different things that fall in under dysfunctional families. And what happens then is that little children are very sensitive. And so as these dysfunctions are happening around us, what can happen is that we internalize the pain that is going on in the family. And of course, things like addiction, that's a pain. If there's a divorce in the family, that's pain. If there's violence in the family, that's pain. So what often can happen with children is we internalize that pain. And then we look at what's going on with our caretakers, and we then think, well, how can I make things better? How can I find a way to balance out or make these challenges that we have in the family better? And so without realizing, we can then take on certain roles in the family. And so my role, as you might have figured out, I call it a good girl, but that is somebody who is going to do whatever it takes, like almost like a peacekeeper, right? But in codependency, would call me a caretaker. And that's somebody who really takes on a lot of responsibilities within the family and tries to ease the problems in the family, tries to figure out ways to shield the people, the parents or the parent from the challenges the pain that they're experiencing. So I didn't speak up. I didn't rock the boat. I didn't do anything that might add to the problems that were already in the family system. So that could be one role. Another role is a hero. You're the straight A student, you're the captain of the football team or whatever team that is, you do all the great things. You choose and as you get older, you choose a doctor or a lawyer. You do all the perfect things. So all the attention goes to you, away from the challenges that are happening in the family, right? So a hero does a great service, he thinks or she thinks. But of course, all of these roles, of course, are at the detriment of your authenticity. But in that moment, we're already feeling too much pain, and so we're taking this on to try and ease the pain in the family. There's also the scapegoat, for example. And the scapegoat is the person that is kind of the opposite of the hero. So maybe they get into trouble, maybe they're a straight F student, and suddenly now all the attention is going to the scapegoat, and therefore we're not paying attention to what's going on inside of the family. The mascot is somebody who makes everybody laugh, and now suddenly humor is easing the pain in the family. And there's also somebody that we call a lost child. And this is the quiet, reserved child that does nothing. You could almost not even know that the person is in the room. That's how they don't want to rock the boat in any kind of way. And so these are our roles that come from an area of psychology called codependency. There are some other sort of offshoots of that, but I thought I'd just say this to start because I'm sure you're wanting to just jump in a little bit before I continue.
I was gonna say, like, the thing is that what people need to realize as well is that these roles. I mean, could you say that people could slip in and out of these roles into different roles, maybe, or do you think that specifically one person is that particular character and that's it?
In my experience, people tend to stick to their roles.
Okay.
But that's just my experience.
To be fair,
I think it's possible. I think it's possible to, I mean, for example, somebody who's a caretaker could easily also become a hero if you're somebody who's doing everything good anyway, and then you just up the ante a little bit and become the straight A student. So of course that's they're quite linked.
I think out of all the roles, I think I would probably fit in with the scapegoat one. I would assume. When you said the lost child, I immediately thought, well, that's going to be me. But then when you were talking about obviously what the lost child, what the characteristics are, I was like, that's not me. I'm actually I would have actually been the scapegoat. I was the person. I wasn't like a straight F student. I was doing okay. I performed well at school, but I didn't perform well enough to match somebody else within the family. And so therefore I was always compared. And so I could never do anything right because it was always compared to this standard up here. And anything that I did, whether it be good or whatever, was always overlooked because of the hero in the family life. So therefore I always performed here and I could never reach that. So therefore in my head, mentally, I was just like, well, what's the point? And so I was always the scapegoat. I would assume looking at that. And it's so weird that obviously you talk about these roles because did you say there's more roles? Or is there these 5 specific ones? These are the main ones.
Those specific roles belong to the arena of codependency. I'm not going to go too much into what that is right now. But what I can let me share from another perspective.
Yeah.
So imagine when you were born, Marcus. You know, this perfect baby boy. You know, just full of wonder and beauty and love and joy and trust and like innocence, right? We're all and I like to call that essence, but it could also, let's imagine that you're just pure love. All right. So imagine that that's how you're born. And then as we grow up, we all have, sadly, we have that vulnerability that's so beautiful in when we're born. Because vulnerability is actually such a strength. It's not a weakness in how many people think vulnerability is. We're born, we're beautiful, we're just perfect, but we're also very vulnerable, right? And little human babies cannot survive without human caretaking and touch and for many years, right? Unlike the animal kingdom. Now, as we grow up, that vulnerability gets wounded. So if you can imagine, there's almost like a structure of 3 circles, and the central circle is your essence, like that's you, just pure love as you're born. And then what happens is we get wounded. And so, for example, what you just shared, that's very shaming, like you being compared to another sibling who's the hero. That's very shaming, right? And that, oh, now that's almost like that becomes like now a layer outside of that purity that you were when you were born. Then maybe there you experience fear or abandonment. Maybe you were abandoned, not like a parent left forever, but they abandoned. Maybe you didn't get your basic needs met. Maybe there was anger in the household, or you experience fear, and so that vulnerability then becomes the next layer is this wounded vulnerability. And in order to function in the world, we then look at how can we compensate. So the roles are real compensations. And so the hero could be a perfectionist, but you can also become like a helper, pleaser, like I mentioned. The hero can also be an achiever. Then you can also turn into something more like a drama queen. You can be a rebel. Then you can just play the victim role. And so there's many different ways that we compensate the roles so there are nuances, if that makes sense. And the roles are really ways for us to cope, to function when actually we're sitting on a lot of pain around, let's say, being abandoned or being shamed. And so the kind of journey of my work is to come back to that essence and come back to that real bodily feeling of, I am enough. I am loved for who I am. And that, as you can imagine, with all the stuff that we experienced to a larger or lesser extent when we were children, it impacts us as adults. And so part of my work is then also to try and shift some of those beliefs that many of us, they're just rooted within, this is the truth. It is the truth that I'm a loser, or it is the truth that I have to do this in order to be loved. It's not the truth. But those beliefs need to be kind of really felt, and not just on a, oh yeah, sure, I'm not sure I'm enough. No, it needs to be really felt for that change to really happen.
I absolutely love it. We talk about that quite a lot, about how you need to feel that you are worthy. You need to feel that you are worthy of love, and that you are worthy of being worthy. That you go through life, especially if you go through trauma within the past, whether that be through whatever reason growing up, you do then suffer. And it comes back to what you were talking about before, with that self-sabotage, with that inner saboteur that tells you that you're not good enough. And it's because of these situations where we grow up and we attach onto certain things and certain memories, etc. And we tell ourselves that we aren't good enough and that we aren't worthy of it, having that praise, that love, that positivity in our lives. And so we push ourselves further down. And what you're doing is that you are actually digging that person back out and lifting them up and showing them that they are worthy of love and that they are worthy of somebody's time. They're worthy of so much more. They're worthy of life.
And in fact, it's a remembrance. It's not me teaching them something. It's more of remembrance, because sadly, and you talk about trauma, like you can have trauma being in a totally functional and beautiful family, so it doesn't have to be like the worst possible. You don't have to grow up in the worst possible family to experience challenges that lead your underdeveloped brain, because when we're children, our nervous system is not complete to develop, our brains are not developed, so we take on beliefs that you might not even, you might have been grown up in a family of origin where you were told you were the scum of the earth, but you might not have been. But because something might have happened and you internalize that experience to mean something about yourself. So it's coming back to, and all my work, in fact, is about equipping you not to need anybody else's approval, because you know it deep inside of yourself.
Absolutely.
And so for example, me as a good girl, but also all the other roles, in fact, is that we look to the external world for cues about how to function in the world. So that could be a hero, it could be the scapegoat, it could be the pleaser. We look to the outside world. Okay, so now mom and dad are doing this, or now the boss is doing that. That informed me that how I'm going to act in this moment. Instead, my work is about bringing it right back inside. I call it your inner compass. And that's where you get your information. Okay, these are my needs. This is what's okay for me. This is what's not okay for me. Creating strong, healthy boundaries so that you don't need anybody around to inform you about how to be in the world, because you know it from the inside.
With regards to anybody out there who may be stuck, kind of unknowingly stuck, if for example they react in certain situations which are unhelpful, etc., and it all comes down to, you know, growing up and all of these external things and attaching emotions to memories and all of that lot, what advice would you give to someone who is in a situation that they need to learn more about themselves to kind of better their life? What would your advice be to them?
So there's two ways I'm going to answer this question. First of all, if I heard part of your question was around if somebody has sort of repeated experiences of, let's say you have repeated experience of certain ways, when this happens, I know for sure I'm always going to really flip out, right? Like there's certain things that trigger you. And so one good way is to, even if you're not able to stop yourself in the moment, but to perhaps start a journal where you start getting curious about, okay, what's the common denominator here? What are, if you start making a list of every time you flipped, whatever that looks like, right? You freaked out, whatever that looks like, and start getting, okay, so it happened last Tuesday and this is what happened. And very often you will probably start seeing a pattern that there's something, that there's a similarity at least. And that can already give you quite a lot of information around, well, okay, so do I remember how I felt in that moment? Because feelings are very telling. The mind can very often lie. The mind is not a great truth teller, but your feelings do. So start to pay attention to your feelings. And another thing you mentioned earlier about you're not very good at saying no, right? And this is a classic case of you might want to look into developing stronger boundaries. Now, boundaries are, it's almost like the white picket fence around somebody's house, right? It's boundaries tell you about what belongs to you and what doesn't, what I'm responsible for and what I'm not responsible for. And so if you're somebody who notices that, oh, I have a hard time saying no, is starting to practice saying no. Now, so let's use you as an example, Marcus. Maybe one of your really good friends that you see a lot to say, okay, I want to practice saying no. So can we just like have that as a rule that you're going to request things of me and I'm just going to say no to you, just as a practice. It's a short, simple word, but for many of us, it's not such an easy word. But but to do that in a place that feels safe, and you might have a bit of fun with it and say, and knowing something that you're already going to say no anyway, but the physical practice of you practicing to say no is a great way to start building boundaries. And another way to notice it around your boundaries is, let's just say you've said yes to something, and right afterwards you're sitting there and you're just like, you're sitting there a bit pissed off, right? That is a clear indication that perhaps you were not authentic in your yes. And I think with anything around this is if you're starting right at ground zero, just start getting curious. A lot of people are not particularly curious about what goes on beyond, what am I having for dinner, and are we meeting at the pub at 6:30? So start getting curious about how you feel moment to moment, because feelings really do give a lot of indication about your inner aliveness. Now, there's a lot of different emotions that you can have. And for example, I have one client right now that only wants to feel joy and happiness. And she's wondering why she's not feeling joy and happiness. And I said, well, out of all those feelings that you can have, you think that you should only have happiness. And so allow anger to inform you. Allow joy, sadness, grief, rage. Allow your feelings to inform you about your inner world. Be curious about what they're here to tell you. Because if you listen, you will learn a lot about yourself. And in order to feel, you need to breathe. So if you're somebody that's breathing very shallow, get really into breathing with your belly. Use the diaphragm to really, like some of us girls, I don't know about you boys, but we learn to hold our belly in, right? So really breathe and let your belly expand. And when we get scared, for example, often we stop breathing because we stop feeling when we don't breathe. So start breathing deeply. Get curious. Listen to your feelings. And perhaps, where can you find like-minded people that might be open to explore some of the things that you're exploring?
It's amazing advice. And I really like the learning to breathe as well. I think definitely people need to breathe more. It's one of those things that you never think about, because it's what we do when we're first born. So you don't have to worry about not breathing and things. But it's actually breathing correctly, and learning to breathe correctly will open up so much more, and you genuinely start feeling a lot more when you start breathing. So yeah,
absolutely. So let your belly really expand. And even if you just take a few breaths like that every day, you will start feeling things shifting. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the modalities I use is called biodynamic breath and trauma release. And that you can actually release long-held trauma in the body through breathing. There's a lot you can do through breathing. So if you notice that you're just kind of breathing through the top of your chest, see if you can start just practicing involving the diaphragm by really expanding your belly. And just through that, life will start shifting for sure.
Definitely. So what is next for Pia Prana? What does the future look like?
What does the future look like? Well, I'm in the middle of creating a new website called piaprana.com. I just published a book in December called She Rises for Tomorrow. It's actually a collaborative book through a few entrepreneurs who have been through challenges and have kind of come out on the other side. And in my case, I actually my journey, I talk about some very, very traumatic stuff that happened in my family. So it's very linked to what we've talked about today. And so for me, the future is really about more and more getting my message out there to people, especially, like I said, to women. I love doing stuff like this. I love just having conversation with loving, open-hearted, intelligent people. So I don't think I'll be doing my own podcast, but I'm going to continue doing a lot of conversations like this, because at the end of the day, I think also it's important to have difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. So that people that might not be in a position to have those conversations right now, at least they have access to it, so that when they feel ready to come out in whatever way that looks like, that's, I suppose, really what my work is all about, is to be a resource for people to give themselves permission to be a work in progress, to be at the beginning, and still know that whatever they carry, whatever shame, or however they feel about themselves, that they are welcome and they are loved.
I absolutely love that. What you've just said then as well, with regards to the way that you do things, and not necessarily doing the podcast. I have, and this goes out to, because none of my viewers or listeners know this either. One of the things that I've started doing is looking at ways to tell so I told my story. It is something, and we've talked about it previously, kind of the tip of the iceberg of it. It goes a lot deeper. With regards to like family and growing up and things like that. And it's something that I've held on to, and I've kind of learned to kind of live with it rather than tell it. And I know that my story could help so many people out there. And it was only, I think it was last month, that I started talking about my story and started opening up. And I went on to somebody else's podcast and told my story from A to Z, and the relief I felt afterwards, and I was like ugly crying. I was like, it touched in so many emotional places, and I purely did show my vulnerability whilst doing that. And there was just something that kind of awoken on the inside, thinking, I need to tell my story. I need to get my story out there as much as I can do to help other people, because there will be other people that it'll resonate with, especially with regards to, as we've talked today, family life. Family life for me was a roller coaster, was so many different things, and a lot of them negative. And to be able to get that story out there, I think would mean a lot more. And the reason that obviously I'm saying all this is because, me being the podcaster, I hold the podcast, I don't really get to talk about my story a lot. And I'm now looking at ways that I can discuss that. And maybe that looks like that I'll be doing a different type of podcast show, whether it's just like talking about me and talking about my story, releasing it as like an audio book. Who knows? But there'll be, I wanted to just kind of chime in there and just say that I completely get it from your perspective, because that's, now that I've talked about my story, and this obviously goes beyond before when we talked about this episode initially, and that we were going to do this episode and we planned it. It wasn't something that I'd done. I hadn't talked about my story. And obviously a couple of months later, I've talked about my story, and now I'm like, I need to do more to get my story out there. And I really do.
And I need to speak now, because I could not agree more. I just found out this week that somebody I know back in Hong Kong has a support, like a charity for sexual abuse victims, and that she in fact was sexually abused by her father. And I immediately just left her a voicemail saying, like, I honor your work so much. Like, I couldn't agree more that you are ahead of so many more people that have gone through what you go through, and to be that role model. And role model can simply be that one person doesn't feel totally alone, because they know that Marcus has been there, done that, and look at Marcus now. Yeah. It's such an important story to tell. And I think what you just said about maybe even if you don't totally shift the podcast, but that you mix it up so that your story becomes more part of this. I think it's so important.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be your cheering in the background.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like the opportunity to discuss now?
You
Or
know,
do you
I
think we've
feel
covered everything?
I think I'm pretty complete. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we could talk for another few hours, but I think for today we've it feels quite whole and complete.
Definitely. Keep an eye out for a part 2, I'm assuming. We'll have to do a part 2. There's so much more. So where if people wanted to know more about who you are, the work you do, maybe get in touch with you about coaching or anything at all, where can people find you?
All right. So I know you'll have some links in the show notes, but I would say that for women, I have a private Facebook group called the Evolving Women's Collective, and I'm there every day. So there you really have direct access. Sorry, chaps. And you can also find me on LinkedIn or Facebook with under my name. So those are probably the easiest ones right now. My website still needs a few months.
No problem. And have you got some final thoughts for us? Some things that people should really take away from today's episode?
You know, I think that there is no shame in not being okay, in whatever way that looks. And so if you are not okay, ask for some support, for no other reason that maybe somebody is able to sit with you and listen, hold your hand. I think that's really, so many people are struggling, and there's no shame in that. There's so many of us that are also struggling or have struggled, and seek help. That's the first step.
Love it. Thank you so much. Now, at the end of every episode, I give my guests the opportunity to give a quote, and it can be something that they stand by, live by. It could be something that they've made up that they just really like, or it could be something that they've heard that they just think, do you know what? I absolutely love that quote. And I'm just wondering if you have got a quote for our viewers and listeners today.
Well, I chose a quote especially for this topic that we talked about today, and it's by a beautiful author called Glennon Doyle. She's like the most honest human being I've ever come across. Her latest book is called Untamed, and this quote is from that book, and she says, "A broken family is a family in which any member must break himself or herself into pieces to fit in. A whole family is one in which each member can bring her or himself fully to the table, knowing that he or she will always be both held and free."
I love that. What does that quote mean to you, and why is that quote important for our listeners?
I think it's important to me because so many of us are walking around as sort of semi versions of who we are in our magnificence. And there's a reason why we were given a unique fingerprint, and that is that we are totally unique. Do not try and mimic somebody else. And that's what so many of us have done for years. And one of my favorite quotes also is like, just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And I'm still, like I said, a work in progress, but for me, it's because I spent so many years trying to fit in. It really is something that's very dear to my heart, because it's taken me a long time to kind of finally stick my head out and be authentic, be myself.
Thank you so much. And you are now free to say your goodbyes.
Well, I am so happy that a few minutes ago you said, I think we need to do a second episode.
We are definitely going to be doing a second episode.
I've not had enough of Marcus.
You need a little bit of Marcus. You need a little bit more of Marcus.
From Saturday.
From Saturday, a little bit more Marcus. But no, 100%. I think that this specific subject needs to be talked about more. And I think that we can go into some more detail. So yes, guys listening and watching, please keep an eye out, because there will be a part 2 to this.
And I guess I just want to thank you for being here, and thank everybody for listening, but especially thank you, Marcus, for this amazing work that you do. And people need role models, and you don't need to be like, the Tony Robbinses or the Oprah Winfreys. I think actually being a real person, showing up every week like you do, that's so much more touching actually than being some famous person. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to be part of your tribe here.
Oh, thank you so much. You can be an official teacup. That's what we call ourselves, with the teacups. So there you go.
Thank you. And I'm a tea drinker, not coffee, so I'm very glad to be a teacup.
There we go. No, thank you so much. That really, really kind words there. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
And I look forward to brainstorming what we're doing next.
Definitely. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, for being so open, honest, vulnerable, for being so educational and so articulate in everything that you've said as well. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on this show.
Me also. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye. Bye-bye.
Wow. I'm sure that you'll agree that was a great episode as well. It's so good as well to talk about family, as I said right from the get-go as well. Family is something that I like to get into the nitty-gritty detail of, and I'm sure that is not the last that we have seen of Pia Prana. Hint, hint. I'm sure that she will be back talking more in depth about the psychology of family. I will look forward to it. Okay, here we go. Spill It. In July. I can't believe that we're at the end of June. That was June. We've completed June, ladies and gentlemen. We are now heading into July. And here are my guests for July. Up first, we will have Dawn Marcotte, who is running to confront problems. She started running to help her mental health all the way through the pandemic and beyond, and she is going to be running her first marathon as well. I cannot wait to get into this with her. Second, we will have on the 14th of July, we have Julie Polston for the episode Rise of the Phoenix. She talks to women in particular about how they can find their inner flame and be reborn into a phoenix. It's going to be such a good episode for that one. Up then, we will then be speaking to Fung Tran for No Shortcuts to Success, who uses her online profiles especially over on Instagram. She's massive over on Instagram, to be fair. And she'll be talking about that you can't take shortcuts for your success, obviously, but specifically when it comes to things like dieting and fitness. There is no shortcut for that. You have to go through it. So specifically talking about these companies that produce items that have a quick fix to diets. And Fung Tran is going to be here talking about a healthy way of how to lose weight, etc. And then closing July, we'll be joined by Ben Campbell and Daniel Carver on Wednesday, the 28th of July. Take a chance and roll the dice. We'll actually be talking and doing a full episode on Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, and how actually that escape from reality is just what people need to help with their mental health, and how D&D has actually helped so many people out there who have felt insignificant and needed that escape from reality to be a better version of themselves. And I cannot wait. But as I say, next week, we are joined by Dawn Marcotte for Running to Confront Problems. I cannot wait to speak to Dawn. I've met Dawn before via this. We talked over the internet, obviously in the midst of lockdown. Dawn is such an infectious character. She's got such a great personality. And we share a birthday. And as soon as she said that we share a birthday, I was like, you're going to have to go on my show. So I cannot wait to get into all of that and all of the running and everything that she's been doing next week. My name is Marcus Wright, and when I'm not doing this, I run a dance exercise class that is really, really popular at the moment outdoors. But then this week, we'll see the launch of a little bit of Marcus over on Beat 103 radio. So make sure that you have tuned in to Beat 103 between 3 and 4. You can tune in via your FM radio, your car radio. You can also ask your little Alexa over there to play Beat 103. And that is from Saturday at 3 till 4 p.m. every single week. I will be there playing you the hits, talking about life and my favorite hit of the week, and also bringing on guests once a month as well. For all details of everything to do with Spill It, make sure you head over to the Spill It website at www.spillit.uk, where you'll be able to buy merchandise. You'll be able to check out the other live episodes over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And also you'll be able to check out the podcast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and get the links to those over on the website too. There is ways to support me, as I say, by buying merch, which you can find on the shop on the website. There is also the Patreon link as well, which you'll be able to click onto, and you'll be able to support me from as little as £2 per month, which is less than the price of a coffee. So, support me, £2 a month. That's it. And that helps Spill It as a profile, as an online profile, keep growing more and more and more. You can also invite people to the Spill It community via Facebook, and also sharing the YouTube links and sharing the podcast links. And also you can leave me a review. If you're listening to this via Facebook or you're listening to this via Apple Podcasts, then all you have to do is leave me a cheeky review. I love reading the reviews. Leave me a cheeky review. Okay, and that is it for now. Thank you so much for those who have stayed and watched this all the way through. Thank you so much for your participation. And until we spill it again, it's bye for now. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Spill It. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to do so. Spill It goes live every week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And a special thank you to these amazing teacups.